Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. I am Professor Dr. Ashfaq Ahmed, Associate Dean, Faculty of Allied Health Sciences, HOD, University Institute of Physical Therapy at University of Lahore. I warmly welcome you all on this wonderful platform of Afro-Asian Institute of Medical Sciences and the online webinars, which is a collaborative effort of Afro-Asian Institute with University of Lahore. So I welcome you all on this third very important webinar by Professor Dr. Asif Hanifsa. I am also thankful to all of you for attending these webinars, for showing your interest as well as certain queries regarding our upcoming webinars. On the behalf of University of Lahore, I'm also thankful to Worthy Chairman BOG Afro-Asian Institute of Medical Sciences, Professor Dr. Syed Amir Kilani Sahab, who has provided this opportunity for knowledge sharing and learning in different disciplines of allied health sciences, as well as biostatistics and other very important emerging fields. It is my honor to introduce our today's speaker, that is Professor Dr. Asif Hanif Saab, who is very well-known and renowned scientist in the field of biostatistics. He has done his PhD in biostatistics and has more than 300 publications in his field related to his field. He has huge contribution in supervising as well as co-supervising of all level of education of studies like undergraduate, MPhil, MS, and PhD. He's currently working as Director Biostatistics Unit of Faculty of Allied Health Sciences at University of Lahore. It's very popular teacher and trainer among our participants and students. So I'm welcome Professor Asif Hanif Sahab, and thank you so much for sparing time for such kind of activities. I'm going to hand over today's webinar to Professor Asif Hanif Sahab. Please, sir, carry on from this onward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for introducing me. And thank you to all of them who provided this platform. Assalamu alaikum to all participants, and assalamu alaikum to Worthy Dr. Ashfaq Sahab and management of Afro-Asian Institute. Today's topic is very simple for, especially very simple and important for beginners who have continuously asked about the tips of data analysis regarding descriptive statistics. Like many a times when our faculty members, when our colleagues come to us, we are asked about the importance of different charts, tables, and statistical techniques in descriptive statistics. And mostly they ask us when to calculate mean, when to calculate median, when to apply pie chart, what is the role of box plot, why standard deviation is too much important, why median and interquartile range is calculated. So we continuously answer these questions in a way to make them understand for their data analysis. Today I will introduce some very core and important points, and I will share some tips how to choose and when to choose biostatistics techniques. Many a times when we evaluate any research paper, or for example, being a reviewer, when we see the written content, the statistical analysis sometimes and many times is inappropriate. So this is very much important to know which kind of techniques to be applied according to your objectives and types of data. First of all, as I am talking about biostatistics, like I'm supposed that I'm talking to the experts of health sciences, the experts of allied health sciences, students of allied health sciences, the people who are attached with life sciences. So for making it very easy and very understandable, I have separated this subject into two domains, like bio, that means life, and statistics, that means facts and figures. So all facts and figures related to life sciences, all facts and figures related to health sciences, all facts and figures related to healthcare system, all facts and figures related to health behavior is actually biostatistics. Without biostatistics, we are unable to define, design, conclude, we are even unable to make the progress in the field of health sciences. So biostatistics is among the important sciences. Biostatistics is one of the important sciences that helps to promote health strategies, that helps to promote health related issues, and that actually gives you the solution when there is health related problems. So technically, there are two types of biostatistics. One is descriptive and other is inferential statistics. Today, I will not discuss inferential statistics. I will only put my efforts to discuss descriptive statistics, in which we will learn graphical, tabular, and number form. For example, among graphical form, I will tell you people which kind of graphical techniques can be used, which kind of tabular techniques can be used, which kind of summary numbers are being used widely. And in inferential statistics, we mostly deal and do with the hypothesis testing. Inshallah, later in any other session, I will discuss this very important aspect as well. First of all, before going to these graphical methods, tabular methods, and summary measures method, I want to share some important concepts that were already shared in very first webinar, that was Introduction to Data Analysis using SPSS. So this is important to know and learn about the type of data first. Like everyone you know that what is data. It's a collection of observation in a scientific way. And among this collection of observation that we collect in a scientific way, many a time the responses are in number, many a times the responses are non-number. Like if someone asks us about our weight, our age, our height, our HB level, our time spending on exercise, all these things are quantitative. The, the things that comes in number is actually quantitative. That quantitative numbers are actually sometime passes through each and every point between two numbers, and sometime they comes in jumping form. Like if I give you example again that I gave in very first webinar, if someone asks us about our age, we can describe our age as 38 years, 5 months, 3 days, 4 hours, 3 seconds, and 5 nanoseconds. We can define, we can describe our age in each and every point. It means it contains decimal data. It means it contains data that passes through every integer and point. And among the discrete data, it comes actually with a jumping value. Like someone asks us, how many brothers and sisters you are. You never say that we are 7.6 brothers and sisters. You never say we are 4.2 brothers and sisters. Even family members, where the data cannot be expressed in form of decimals, is our discrete data. And when the responses are in a number, they might be, it is dealt as quantitative data, and it might be discrete data or continuous data. Now you have to be very clear and keep in your mind while selecting the statistical tool, all statistical tool and statistical methods, data analysis methods depend on the type of data. And if the responses are in a non-number, like if someone asks you about your blood group, if someone asks you about your blood group, do you say 32? No. If someone asks you about your gender, do you say 49? No. If someone asks you about your caste, do you say, do you tell in a number? No. When the response is in a non-number, this is qualitative data, mainly known as categorical data. I have written here qualitative data just for the sake of understanding. Otherwise, it's also called categorical data. This categorical data can be expressed as in form of a specific type of graphs, tables, and numbers. So for these qualitative and quantitative data, we distribute them in nominal scale, ordinal scale, and that quantitative data is actually divided into interval scale and ratio scale. For example, where the data is distinguished by its name, male and female are only name, blood groups are only name, area of residence is only name, brand of mobile is only name. So when the data is distinguished by its name, it's nominal scale. And when there is natural order, when there is ranked, like severity of pain, how much pain you have, mild, moderate, severe, grade of tumors, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, education status, primary, middle, matric, secondary education, graduation, post-graduation, all these have to pass through some order, some ranks. So all the data that can be arranged in a natural order, or when there is superiority and inferiority, it's actually ordinal scale. And in quantitative data, if your number can be expressed as 0, for example, can you say your age is 0? No, your age cannot be 0. But today's temperature can be 0. When the data is expressed in form of 0 and it makes some logical intervals, some logical ratios, it is interval scale. For example, in interval scale, we cannot make the ratios. Like if today's temperature is, for example, 28, we cannot say that the temperature will be doubled at 56. It may be some other process when we feel the double temperature even at 32. But in ratio scale, for example, someone's age is 50, we can say he's double than than a person whose age is 25. So here we can make the ratios, and here 0 cannot be expressed as presence of the data. In interval, 0 can be present. In ratio, 0 cannot be present. So all these types of data must be in your mind. All this measurement scale must be in your mind before going to plan and before going to execute your data analysis. Data presentation, mainly there are 3 types of data presentation, like you can make graph, you can make summary measures, you can make table. So descriptive statistics means you are describing your data, you are showing your data. If you have collected thousands of data, these thousands of data can be summarized, can be described in a descriptive way, in a way to make it understandable. Sometimes, like if I share my recent experience with my few students, I asked them, show your data. They brought up all the data to me. And then I told them, show your data in an understandable way. Then they make table, graph, or summary measures. So sometime if your supervisor or if your evaluator is asking you to show your data, be very much clear if he asking about the original data, raw data, or analyzed data, summarized data, data in tabulation form, data in graphical form, data in single measures. Look, science has given us very good advantages. Like if you have the weight of thousands of patients, this is not possible to make it understandable, the weight of 1,000 patients in raw form. No one can no one can understand even the pattern of your data. If you make your thousands of data in an understandable way, like table, like graph, like you calculate mean, median, or mode, along with the dispersion of data, I will tell later, it can help the reader to know about the pattern, behavior, and distribution of your data. So today I will also tell you which components must be taken in mind when we actually present our data. First thing is that to describe your data. Then to show the distribution of your, dispersion of your data, to show the dispersion of your data. Then third thing is to show the behavior of your data. Actually, so far we are more concerned with the pattern of data, with the dispersion of data, and we never consider the behavior of data. And I put more focus on behavior of data while analyzing and while seeing the pattern of data, because behavior of data is very much important to see and to decide about the hypothesis testing tools, about the selection of inferential statistics. And I will give you some tips about the behavior of data, how to see, and what actually is meant by the behavior of data. So here you can see, first of all, let's consider graphical presentation of data. Graph is actually visual presentation of data, pictorial form of data. When you have thousands of data and it can be summarized in a simple picture, it can be described in a simple chart, it can be described in a way to make that data understandable. But the issue is this: students and most of us do not know how to make the data presentation effective, how to show our data effectively. Sometimes students come and show their data in pie chart that is not understandable, in bar chart that is not understandable, in wrong way of graphical presentation that leads an inquiry about the data, and that leads further elaboration of the data to make the understand, to see the pattern of the data. So for example, I give you some tip if you have paper and pen, and also I have added some practical tips in my presentation at the end of each component, so do not miss, please. Common uses of graphs. Why we use graphs? To make good understand and attractive of our data. To check the assumption, yes, graphical methods help us to check the assumption for inferential statistics. Later, inshallah, when I talk about inferential statistics, I will start from the uses of graphs to see the assumption of data, to check the assumption of data, help in selection of statistical tools. So there are many types of graphical presentation. You being a teacher, you being a supervisor, you being a student, you being a researcher, see many a time these kind of presentation of data, these graphs. For example, you have many time encountered with pie chart, with bar chart, with multiple bar chart, with subdivided bar chart, with histogram, with box plot, with line charts, with scatter plot chart. I have given only few graphical presentation of data that can be utilized in our research manuscript. The research manuscripts are article and thesis. So for example, pie chart is one of the most common used graphical method, but mostly mistreated graphical presentation. Why I'm saying mistreated? Because I have seen many a times students or the researcher give it in a wrong way. The pie chart is not appropriate for every kind of data. Pie chart is suitable for a specific kind of data. I tell you later. Similarly, I can say all these graphical methods are not made for every kind of data. So keep data type in your mind now. Data was quantitative. Among quantitative, it was continuous and discrete. It was taken in interval and ratio. Data was categorical. It was measured on nominal and ordinal scale. So keep all these things in your mind now before choosing these type of data. Let me tell you one by one when and where these type of graphs are applicable. Pie diagram. Ideal when data is categorical. Ideal when data is categorical with less categories. Sometime we make pie chart for quantitative data. There are many slices. For example, we have taken ages of 60 students. Possibly there are 30 to 40 ages. Among 60 students, possibly there are 40 to 50 different numbers. And how can you divide those 40 to 50 slice numbers in slices in a single pie chart? That cannot give you the exact description and understanding of your data. So the practical tip is pie chart is applicable when you have categorical data with less categories. How less? When each and every slice can be read. For example, I make pie chart here for you people, and here are many slices. And it is difficult to understand these slices. So when you have categorical data or discrete data, categorical or discrete, you can make simple bar diagram. Categorical data with more categories, like in this graph, you can see I have made it for 9 categories almost. Many a times we take age as quantitative data, but we can make it categorical as well. By splitting our quantitative data into different groups, you can see different groups here: less than 10 years, 10 to 19 years, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, and so on. So if you make your simple bar diagram for discrete data or for categorical data, when there are more categories, it will be more appropriate. It will be more understandable. It will be more logical to understand your data. So it was all about categorical data. When categorical data has less number of categories, and when categorical data has more number of categories. Multiple bar diagrams. Multiple bar diagrams are used to see the association, to know about the association, or to see one category in other category. For example, gender versus smoking. These type of graphs were only for one variable. For example, gender. For example, blood groups. For example, we want to see blood group versus gender, then we make multiple bar diagram. These multiple bar diagram can be managed in a limited page. When the size of page is not too much, you can split your bars like this and it becomes subdivided bar diagram. What is difference? Here the bars were located side by side. Here the bars are located ups and down. When the bars are located ups and down, this is subdivided bar diagram. And the purpose of multiple bar diagram and subdivided bar diagrams are same. When we need to show our two categorical variables, two categorical data. For easy understanding, to make it very easy, you can take in your consideration when two categorical data like smoking versus lung cancer, gender versus eating habits, blood group versus different diseases. All these types of examples are categorical data, and I am talking about at least two data and two variables. So for two data, for two variables, we need to take it as, we need to present our data in multiple bar diagram and subdivided bar diagram. So histogram is one of the most important commonly used graphical presentation to see the behavior of data. Look, I told you earlier, I will talk about behavior of data as well. Behavior of data means which kind of shape it has. If your data has bell shape, the data is ideal, the data is normal, the data is symmetrical. That is called ideal data that has equal spread around its mean, median, and mode. When data is equally distributed around its mean, it is normal distribution. So histogram can tell us about the pattern behavior of data. And by default, when we make histogram through SPSS, it gives you the number of observation, mean, and standard deviation. I'll tell you all these things one by one. So histogram is used for continuous data. When our purpose is to check the behavior of data, distribution of data, pattern of data. So this histogram is not applicable for categorical data. This histogram is not applicable for discrete data. This is only applicable for continuous, that was under quantitative section. So for quantitative and more specifically for continuous data like our weight, like our height, like our HB level, like our body mass index, like our distance traveled in a day, we can take all these data into each and every possible decimal points. So when your data is continuous and you need to show your data, do not make pie chart. Continuous data, for continuous data, do not make bar chart. For continuous data, do not make subdivided or multiple bar chart. For continuous data, make histogram. The next is scatter plot. Scatter plot is used to see the correlation, to know about the relationship between data. Which kind of data? Continuous. Like age versus height, like weight versus calorie intake, like HB level versus birth weight, maternal HB level versus birth weight, like temperature versus tea consumption. So all these continuous data are interrelated. If one variable is increasing, other is increasing. If one variable is decreasing, other is decreasing. And it may be if one variable is increasing and other is decreasing, the inverse way of the relationship. So here I give you a tip. When this kind of pattern is seen, it means both variables have same direction. Both data has same direction. They are moving together. They may be increasing together or they may be decreasing together. If one variable is increasing and other is decreasing, then the pattern will be like this. Usually on x-axis, we take independent variable like birth weight. On y-axis, we usually take dependent variable like birth weight. Independent variable like HB level. Dependent variable like birth weight. This independent variable is denoted as X and this is as Y. So when we need to visualize independent and dependent variable, when we need to visualize the relationship between independent and dependent variable, we apply scatter plot. And many times, because it looks attractive, student comes with different objective, they have different objective, and they have made scatter plot. That is wrong. This can be only generated to see the relationship between independent and dependent variable. And condition is this: both independent and dependent variable must be continuous, must be quantitative. For example, there is another example, gender versus smoking. Both are interlinked. Smoking depends on gender, but they are categorical. For those categorical, we cannot make scatter plot. For those categorical, we can make subdivided bar diagram or multiple bar diagram, these one. If the data is continuous and we want to check the relationship, then we can make scatter plot. And sometimes the pattern of data is weird. We want to see the misleading data. We want to see the abnormal values. We want to see the outlier among the data. Because this is very much important for each and every analysis. Before proceeding the advanced analysis, it is important to know about the outlier of the data. Like, someone has told he has collected 100 observations in which he measured the weight of students, weight of school going children. Very simple. The weight of school going children is, for example, 13 kg, 14 kg, 19 kg, 20 kg, 11 kg, 22 kg. Suddenly, the weight of another participant who may be a teacher, who may be attendant, who may be the guard of the school, his weight was taken as 100. So now look, this 100 is totally abnormal value when we compare the weight of the students, weight of the school going children. This 100 will disturb the pattern and the distribution of my data. This 100 or the observation like such kind of hundreds, such kind of data must be taken before any advanced statistical analysis. Like, many a times students come, our HB level is abnormally distributed. Like, our weight of students is abnormally distributed. In easy way, the data is not normal. So we need to see why data is not normal. We need to have a treatment. We can have a treatment. We can have the idea of the data, why this data is not normal. I request many times to the analysts, to the researchers, we simply say that my data was not normal. When I say why your data is not normal, they don't know. The data is usually not normal because of these outliers. And there is a chance this outlier was a typing error. There is a chance this outlier was among your exclusion criteria when you designed your research project. This outlier may be due to an intention of the participant. So first of all, you may need to know why your data is not normal. If there is a abnormal measure, that abnormal measure can be seen using box plot. This box plot is very much important for advanced statistical analysis. This box plot contains 5 summary measures. I didn't tell in the previous graphs which kind of summary measures they take. This is actually the median of data, the most central point of the data. For example, this is the 25% of the data. That is called Q1. If you have little idea about quartiles, this is the point where our 75% of the data is contained. That is called Q3. This is Q3. This is Q1. The point where 25% of the data is contained. And what it is? Interquartile ranges. Lower interquartile range, upper interquartile range. No need to get the understanding of these interquartile range. I just need to tell you every ideal data must lie between their interquartile ranges. Every ideal data must be in these whiskers. These are called whiskers of the box plot. If any data is away from this whisker, like this observation number 26, this is outlier. This observation number 26 is disturbing my data. My data is not abnormal. My data is not normal, maybe only due to this single observation. So it must be treated. How we can treat? First of all, see if it is not a typing error. Secondly, see if it is not an intentionally entered data. Then see if it is not from your exclusion criteria. Then see if it is really from the original data. Then you may replace this single number with another data, that is allowed. Or if there are more than one observation, those are disturbing, then you do not need to make or replace your abnormal data. Then there are different ways to make your data normal, like transformations. This is not scope of today's talk. Inshallah, next time in any other webinar, I will try to convey you people how to make your abnormal data after transformation, how to make your data normal with the help of different transformations. So in SPSS, how these graphs can be made? I have already told in my first webinar, you may need to select graphs, and all these graphs are present here. For pie chart, make only for categorical data. Bar chart, categorical data, discrete data. In this bar chart, you will see multiple bar chart and stacked bar chart. Histogram is here for continuous data. Box plot is here to check the abnormal measure, to check the outlier in the data. Scatter plot to check the relationship between two quantitative data. So in a single click, you can make bar chart. Many times students come to us, faculty members come to us, they have made wrong bar chart, and when we ask them, this chart is wrong, and they argue that I didn't make this chart, SPSS make this chart. SPSS made this chart. And then my next argument is definitely must be, you have given command to SPSS in a wrong way, and SPSS is obeying your order, and SPSS must have to execute the command you have given. So before giving the command to SPSS, you must know about the type of data, the appropriateness of you must know when any of this chart is appropriate for categorical, quantitative, and discrete data. This is gift from you, from my side. I have made it very clear. When your data is qualitative data with less categories, you need to make pie chart. You can make the picture of this slide. Qualitative data, ideally when more categories and discrete data, you need to make bar chart. Qualitative data with multi-way, I mean gender versus smoking, mode of trauma versus season, smoking versus gender, blood group versus diseases, different genes versus obesity. So you can make multiple bar chart or subdivided bar chart. And if your data is continuous, if your data is quantitative, and your primary objective to see the pattern and distribution of the data, you can make histogram. Among the quantitative data and continuous data, if your intentions are to visualize the relationship between data, you make the scatter plot. If you want to identify the outlier, you can make the box plot. And box plot can identify multiple outliers. Sometime people ask me, how many data can be outlier? And my answer is, until unless it becomes the part of data, until unless it becomes the pattern of data, until unless it start being the part of your existing data, it's actually your outlier. If there are 20 observations, if there are 30 observations, 5% of the data can be your outlier. And it is possible that 5% of data may support the pattern of the data, that then it is not outlier. So how many observations need to be there to make it outlier? the number of observation that cannot take part as to make the pattern of data. So very simple, for advanced statistical analysis, this box plot must be applied and in order to identify your outlier in the data. Then usually we are stuck with the tabulation, specifically when to make the tables. My tip for you people, if you have understood these type of graphs in which only presentation of data was matter, like pie chart, pie diagram, only matter was our concern was to present our data, only to present our data, only to present our data, only to present our data, and also to see the behavior of data. So this graph was for continuous data. So take from your mind to make the table for continuous data. Only take in your mind to make table where you have made pie chart, I mean categorical data, bar chart, categorical data with multi-way, multiple bar diagram, categorical data when there are more categories and variables, histogram, no need. You can make mean and standard deviation or summary measure for this kind of data. Scatter plot, no need to make the table. Another statistics is being used to replace the scatter plot when it becomes in numerical. No need. So one-way table, when you have categorical data, like these ages are given in categories, whatever the categories are less and more must be categorical data, then you can make frequency distribution. Like 2x2 table, when there are categorical data with multi-way, there are two variables like this. This 133 shows black females. This data actually represents race of respondent and their sex, their gender. White male. You can see this 545 giving 2 information. This 28 is giving 3 information. So when there are categorical data, you can make one of those chart or the table. Try to give only one thing, graph or table. Many a times we are stuck with table with graph. It is our concern, no, I need to give the table and I need to give the graph. No, choose only one. Give table or the graph. The purpose behind giving the table and graph is only to describe and show the pattern of your data. From SPSS, you can see, analyze descriptive statistics and frequencies. In frequencies, you can make table. And for statistics, definitely, I will tell later, you can go for central tendency. Look, data is presented in form of graph and a table. Now the third is measure of central tendency. The data that's a number that describe your data in concise way. A number that tells where the bunch of your data lies. A number that tells the pattern and central tendency of your data. Which data? Categorical? No. Quantitative data. For categorical, you cannot calculate mean. For grouped data, for nominal data, for ordinal data, mean, median are not allowed to be calculated, are not allowed mean, are not appropriate to be calculated. So mean and these things like standard deviation must be calculated for continuous data, for quantitative data. I have given another table here at the end of my slide when and how to select these measure of central tendency according to the type of data. So most commonly used are mean, median, and mode. I will focus these three. Suppose this is data, only to tell you that the ideal situation of the data. The ideal situation is of your data is when your mean, median, and mode are close to each other, and many a time they are same. If they are not same, they must be close to each other. If your mean, median, mode are close, then your data will be normal or to the near normal distribution. So how to calculate these mean, median, mode has all been already discussed in first webinar, and today I will also tell you how to calculate these using SPSS. But the main point is today's talk is when to apply what, when to apply mean, when to apply median, when to apply mode. Every time we actually are stuck with the mean. Mean is our favorite thing. Mean should not be our favorite thing. Mean should not be applied everywhere. Mean should not be given for each and every type of data, every kind of data. Mean must be given only for continuous data if there is no outlier. If your data has an outlier, mean is not appropriate. If your data is not normal, mean is not appropriate. But we every time apply mean with whatever, which kind of data we are dealing. So you need to consider mean only for continuous data if the data is normal, if the data is normally distributed, if there are no outliers. If the data is not normally distributed and if there are outliers, then what? Median is there, apply median. And when data is categorical, when data is discrete, you can apply mode. Mode is very, very limited to be applied in real sciences. Like in categorical data, you can apply mode. Mode is actually the number of most frequent value of the data. Like in your class, if there are 50 female and 20 male, which group is more female? This is mode. And if you intend to calculate mean of the gender, it will wrong. It will be wrong. Many a time students come to us and who have applied mean to the gender. And ultimately, because while dealing with the gender, code is introduced, one for male, two for female. And when they calculate mean of the gender, it becomes 1.5, 1.6, 1.7. The wrong interpretation will be there. One was male, two for female. Only for the sake of understanding, we assigned these codes. When we have assigned these code only for the sake of our understanding, it should not be dealt like the arithmetic operations. Mean should not be calculated for categorical. And I asked the student who calculated mean of the gender, okay, one was the male, two was the female. What is 1.6? You have changed the gender of whole of your population. 1.65 is nothing. You cannot interpret 1.65. And the same situation is with the discrete data. If you have taken the family number of family members in a house, for example, you are working in a TB project, and tuberculosis directly with the size of the family is correlated with the size of family. And if you are taking size of family as a variable, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 3, 2, 1, 5, 6, 9, 11, 13, 7, 8, 9, it should not be presented as mean. Mean will be 5.6. Is it logical to present our family member as 5.6? Is it logical if someone say in your house the family members are 5.6? No, it cannot describe. Yes, we can make it round. You can calculate mode. You may calculate median, but if the answer is coming in decimal, do not present it in form of summary measures. Then choose some graphical presentation or merge it in a categories like less than 3 members, 3 to 6 members, more than 6 members. Now you can make table, you can make graph, you can make chart of this categorized and transformed data, grouped data. So mean only for continuous data when there is no outlier. Median, when there is outlier, median is appropriate. Mode for categorical and discrete data like this. Problem with the mean, it gives equal weight to all measurement, and outlier and large influence on the computed mean value. It distorts our perception about the central tendency of the data. Definitely, it will, like this. If the data is ideal, like this, if the data is ideal, this is the data, here is the mean, here is the median, very ideal situation. If there is an outlier like this, the observation comes here. Look carefully what will happen with the mean and what will happen with the median. The mean shifts here after insertion of outlier, but the median is almost there. Look, almost there. The median is shifted from here to here, from here to here. Why and how? Because an outlier came in the data. So it is mandatory to see outlier in the data. And when you present your data in summary measures, like you have given mean, like you have given median, like you have given mode, then the distribution of data must be discussed as well. Sometime, if you collect data, the mean is same. Okay, this is the tip for practical tip for you people, some important points. If the data is nominal, make proportion, frequency table, percentages, or calculate mode. Same for the ordinal, almost same for the discrete. If the data is continuous, make mean and median when having outlier. You can also select geometric mean and harmonic mean, but in health sciences, mostly not considered. Only mean and median can help you to describe your data. And if your data is interval, you have to give mean and mode. Here, median is not applicable. See, recall the measurement scale I told in I told earlier in at 4th or 5th slide. So you need to know actually the type of data, measurement scale of the data before selection appropriate statistical tools. So SPSS can help you like descriptive statistics, among frequency, press statistics. You can calculate here mean, all central tendency, location of the data, dispersion that I'm going to cover in coming slides, and distribution behavior. Is the data normal or not? So look at this picture. This is scattered data. From this scattered data, we calculate mean. Now, for example, from your students, you have collected the data and the average weight is, let's suppose 49 kg. I ask you, is every student has 49 kg of weight? No, not every student has 49 kg of weight, but the mean is 49 kg. Then I'm more concerned, what is the deviations? What is the difference? What is the distance of every weight from this 49 kg? To measure that collective distance, dispersion of each and every data from their mean is actually dispersion, is actually standard deviation, is actually variance, is actually coefficient of variance. But when these different type of dispersions are applicable, I tell you, like there are two types of dispersion, absolute and relative. These are widely used, like range, standard deviation, and variance. You have encountered many times. Absolute measures are used to see the variability of the data, how the data is variable from the central point, from the mean, to compare the variability of different groups taken in same units, and the relative measure to compare the different groups when the units are different. If we want to see which data is more reliable, we can also calculate relative measure. Mainly, you have to put focus on absolute measure. The absolute measure helps you to see the variability of each and every observation from your mean, from the central point you have calculated. So why dispersion? The only slide to be more focused. Why dispersion? Why dispersion is needed? Look, I have this data, I have this data. But two types of data. I mean two types of data. One student collected this type of data, ages of children. Another student collected this. You calculate mean will be same for both data. So mean is used. Mean is used to see the pattern of data, but it is same. I want to know which kind of data is more reliable, which kind of data is more accurate, which kind of data I must rely. The data that has less dispersion, the data that has less, for example, standard deviation, the data that is less deviated must be considered for future concerns, to draw conclusion. So I need to calculate immediately dispersion here to know about the exact distribution of the data. Look, the mean of this data is 7. The mean of this data is also 7. So which data is more reliable? The data that has less standard deviation. That's why dispersion is very much important. That's why standard deviation is calculated to see actually the distribution of the data, dispersion of the data, variability of the data. Like this, the average variability of data from its center. Variance is the square of the standard deviation. If we have ages of children as the mean is 3.12, for example, sorry for the previous slide, if I told earlier, this is the mean. This is the mean. This is the mean. So this 7, it's usually written as 7 plus minus, I mean mean plus minus standard deviation 3.12. This is written as 7 plus minus 5.56. See, this variability is less. So this data is good to be used because it has less variation. Oh, these are few examples. So, okay. Behavior of the data. I told earlier, the behavior of data mean when mean, median, and mode are almost on the same point, it is the ideal situation. This is also called normal distribution. If the mean is greater than the median is greater than the mode, mean, median, mode, they are greater from each other, or when your data shows right tail is prolonged, right tail is longed as compared to the left tail, it is positively skewed. It means most of the data lie on the right side of the mean, above the mean, and negatively skewed mean, the left tail is prolonged. This in this ideal situation, in this ideal situation, you can apply any mean, median, mode. In this situation, like positive skewed and negative skewed, these are the actually histograms. These are the histograms. When you make the histogram, if your right tail is long, if the right tail of your data is long, it is positively skewed. If the left tail of your data is long, this is negative skewed. So for two skewed data, mean is not appropriate, median is appropriate. So sometime that's why I told you earlier that graphical presentation is one of the important concern. That's why I told you earlier, graphical presentation of data is very much important to be considered before applying any advanced statistical technique. So sometime our data is normal, but that normality looks like this. You can see right and left tails are same. This is the ideal situation. This is not ideal situation. This is not ideal situation. So for example, I say in this distribution, the dispersion, the standard deviation is less. In this, standard deviation is more. The data is more dispersed. In this, it is looking like an ideal bell shape. So kurtosis is very much important to know the behavior of your data. Skewness and kurtosis must be taken into consideration before going to apply any major statistical analysis, before going to test your hypothesis, before going to apply any advanced statistical technique. So how these things can be calculated like this? Here is the skewness and kurtosis. And you can see this if the value of kurtosis greater than 0, you can understand that your bell shape will be long. It's a long. That's why you can recall it. You can take in your mind long lepto, and it's like a plate. This is like plateautic. In this, the value of this kurtosis will be less than 0. It will be negative. And if it is mesochaotic, this will be or around 0, like this ideal situation. So the discussion was actually the application of descriptive statistics after understanding the type of data. So if the type of data is in your mind, like if you want to make pie chart, data must be categorical with less categories. You want to make bar chart, data must be categorical with more categories. Bar chart can be made for discrete data. Histogram can be made for continuous data. Scatter plot is used to check the relationship between two quantitative or continuous data. Box plot is used to check the outlier in the data. Mean is ideal when the data is continuous and there is no outlier. Median is ideal when data is quantitative continuous, when there are outlier. Mode is applicable for categorical data, for discrete data. Standard deviation is very much important to know the distribution and spread and scatterness of the data. When you apply mean, you give your status dispersion as standard deviation. When you apply median, you give interquartile range instead of your standard deviation. Because interquartile mean, there may be outliers, I told you in the box plot, and when there are outliers, you apply median. When there is median, you need to apply interquartile. So it was all about descriptive statistics and the tips when and how to apply your statistical analysis according to the type of data.